Hey there, folks. I'm Matt Hansen,
And I'm John Johnson.
and you're listening to Planes, Trains, and Comic Books, the podcast where we discuss favorites we've reread, both classic and new comics we want to read, and everything else in between.
And here's the comic we picked this week.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Planes, Trains, and Comic Books. Today, we are checking out some Femme Fatales that you all voted on, our patrons. So thank you very much for voting on that. This one is actually a book I had not read before, so I'm very excited about that. It is the book called Fatale. Just so you know, John has moved. He did a big move, so they're getting situated, and their situation has more dogs and whatnot. So if you hear dogs in the background, forgive us.
Yes, hopefully they shouldn't be too much of a disturbance. My apologies.
Hopefully not. But anyway, so yeah, Fatale is a book by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, one of my favorite creative teams, and so yeah, it's definitely a different take. Usually they just do straight crime, but this is more like sci-fi as well. Is it sci-fi, or would it be like?
Yeah, I'd say it's sci-fi.
Yeah, sci-fi and crime, like mixed together. There's a bit of like Cthulhu lore in there, a little bit of Lovecraft, a little bit of pulp crime stuff. So I thought this was pretty fun. What would your take? I assume you hadn't heard about this before.
No, not at all. I mean, you kind of introduced, like, I've read some stuff from Ed Brubaker before, obviously, and then we've done what was it, Reckless, right?
Reckless,
yeah, they did
yep.
Reckless, and that was good. So I definitely was into more because I really enjoy Ed Brubaker's writing. So, but I had not heard of this until we were talking about doing the poll. Sorry, I was like, what did we do? Our monthly poll. And so I'm glad it won because this one definitely piqued my interest when it was one of the choices. So yeah, but I had not read it at all.
Okay, yeah. Like when I put this on the poll, it was just like we literally were like Femme Fatales. Okay, type in Fatale, and this came up. And I'm like, oh, cool, Brubaker and Sean Phillips. There's a pretty lady on the cover. We're assuming it is a Femme Fatale book, just by the name and stuff. So luckily, it pretty much was. There was some of the books that we put on there weren't necessarily like straight up femme, like they weren't like Basic Instinct Femme Fatales, where it's like she's a fucking killer, But like this one kind of is more of like it surrounds this whole crime and mystery surrounds this woman. She's not necessarily the one doing the killing per se, although maybe she is, and we don't know it because this is only the first volume, and it is, I think, a 5-volume series. So maybe 6, can't remember. But yeah, there's definitely like murders and stuff in this one, but it's not necessarily from her directly. So, but we'll dig into that as we go. But we start off with the prologue, and I thought this was interesting the way that they, I guess, do the chapters in this book, or the sections. They're called chapters because we learn about, we're at a funeral in this first page, and there's this guy who died named Dominic Hank Raines, and he Raines, is that? Yeah, I guess it's Raines. Yeah. And he was an author, like a pulp author, and there's this guy named Nicholas that's at his funeral, and it seems like, I don't know, Nicholas didn't have that much going on in his life because he leaves all of his stuff to this guy named Nick. Hank didn't have that much stuff going on in his life because he left all his stuff to Nick and not like other family members and whatnot. And so, doesn't Nick say he's like his like godson, basically?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, so like that's how they know each other. But at this funeral, Nick is walking around and he sees this smoking hot babe. He's like, oh my God, who's this lady? It's like something about her. Like, I cannot get her out of my head. She's like completely mesmerizing. And like, it's just noteworthy to him. He's like, I felt like a little little schoolboy again. I haven't felt like that in a long time. And then we cut to later that night where he is now at Dominic or Hank's house, because I will say I'll interchange Dominic with Hank. He's Dominic in the modern day. I guess I don't know what modern day is necessarily. Do they say what year this is supposed to take? Like the modern day part of it?
No, not specifically. The cars that we see from that look like maybe they're like late 80s, early 90s. But I can't.
Okay.
No, or maybe
I was
maybe
gonna say
2000.
I was gonna say 2000s, but whatever. So close to that. And then then there's parts that are in the 50s. So when he's in the 50s, this author's name was Hank, and in the 90s or whatever modern day is, they call him Dominic. So that was one thing to get used to. And at first I was like, wait, who the fuck is Hank and who is Dominic? Because like I was getting confused. I didn't realize that like there was the same person for a hot second. And I thought like there were two brothers or something. There's a writer and this guy and this other guy. Like, so anyway, Nick is at this house because he was left the house of Dominic, and he's looking through the guy's stuff, probably seeing if there's anything worth selling, he says, because, the guy apparently wasn't like a giant success, but, he might have had some money or whatever. But he looks through the Dominic's desk, and he finds a script for a book, or a manuscript for a book. And it was published in 1957. And he's like, holy shit. He didn't publish his first novel until the 60s. So this must be like an unpublished work, which is like, hell yeah, I struck the money pit if this guy has a following, right? So, or struck gold. There we go. We'll say.
Yeah.
Like money pit's a bad thing. Don't say. Yeah. Struck gold. But right as he thinks that, so a car pulls up and these two goons get out and they have shotguns, and Nick's like, what the fuck is this? So he runs down the stairs with the manuscript in his hands. The guys break through the door, and as he's going down the stairs, all of a sudden Josephine comes out and starts shooting at them and murdering them. Like just totally like one shot kill. Like it was pretty sick. And Hank's or Nicholas is like, the hell's going on? Like,
What are you doing here? What is going on?
yeah, exactly. And then like they jump in a Ferrari or whatever, and they're off, on a highway, and they're driving, and they're getting chased around by people and planes and stuff, and like the plane is literally like it's not in the sky, it's like dive bombing them and stuff. So someone it really wants whatever, either what Nick has in his hands, or they think Nick can give them something. And Joe, who's this woman, we find out her name is Josephine. She is she comes out of nowhere, and obviously maybe wants something from him too, but we don't quite know what her intentions are. So in the course of this car/plane chase, the car flips, and we wake up. We cut to Nicholas in the hospital. We wake up to him. He only has one leg now. Like one of his legs got half amputated from this car chase crash. And but luckily he still has the manuscript. I thought that was funny. I was like, all right, we got to believe that in the middle of the whole car explodes. And we got to believe that in the midst of all that, the pages of this manuscript that is like 50 years old stayed together and perfect,
He had it in the little sleeve. It was tucked in.
It's not covered in blood. His fucking
Yeah.
leg bleeding out or anything. No, all right. That was like the most unbelievable thing about this. And there's Cthulhu monsters in this, so yeah. But then as he's going through the picture or the manuscript in his bed because he's got nothing else to do, he flips through it and he finds a picture of the author Dominic and this woman that looks a lot like Josephine. And he's like, holy shit. Like, basically, he just jumps to, it is her. It's not like her mom. It's not any of that shit. It's her. And then we cut to chapter 1. And chapter 1 is this scene that's in the picture where it's Josephine at a bar where it's the first time she's met Dominic. But in this, he calls himself Hank. So this is where I was like, okay, where are we at? What's going on? They don't say, I mean, they do say San Francisco 1956 in this panel. But going forward, when they flip between time periods or scenes, I'm like, wait, is this old or is this new? Like, is this modern or is this the 50s? And most of the time it's the 50s. So that's kind of like, if you don't see Nicholas, that's the tell that it's not modern day.
You see one leg, and I will say that Nicholas has a little like gray streak in his head, like kind of like Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, sure. But so does Hank. Hank sometimes when he's drawn has like a highlight that kind of looks gray too. So I was like,
That's
wait,
true.
is this supposed to be him? Is this? But then it was like, oh no, it's not. So, but one thing I did like about this is he's reading a book manuscript. Obviously, there's chapters in that book, and they go to like he's like on reading these chapters, and then it's like chapter 1. So I kind of was like, I don't know if you thought about this, but like, what if what we're getting in the past is actually the book that he's reading?
Oh yeah, I kind of assume that.
Okay, so like, but what I mean is like, do you think that means that all of it's true, or do you think it means that this might just be a story and later on we find out the actual truth?
I think it's probably something like that. Like, so my thought was, okay, this was when he didn't publish, so I assume he had some these events kind of thing happen in this book, and maybe that's what he was going to write about, and then whatever happens, and it was like, oh, okay, someone in that society, because obviously people are after Joe,
Right.
and people are after the
Joe
Nicholas,
Joe is also Josephine. Like they
Joe
switch.
and Josephine. Yeah,
It's Joe in the present and and Josephine in the past.
exactly. And so it made it seem like maybe something happened, whatever happened here in this bet crazy stuff, like maybe inspired him to write, and then like, or maybe he was going to be a writer or whatever, and he wrote that, and it's kind of this story, but it's so intense and like bad stuff happens that like, okay, either I have to write something else, or like I'm getting forced to write something else so this like doesn't get out.
So like this guy could have been like the first Alex Jones or something if he had gone and published that book.
Exactly.
Exposing the whatever, the Cthulhu monsters that rule us.
That go to try to rule us all.
Yeah, because we should say that Hank was also like a journalist, is basically what he is. And I thought that was interesting. I'm like, oh, I thought he was a novelist, but apparently, at least in the early days, he was just a journalist.
Works for the paper.
Works for the paper, investigating journalism. And so he's at this bar. He meets Joe. He's immediately enthralled with her. So much that he's like, I'll protect you. I'll do whatever you fucking want. And like, he's a married man. He's got a kid on the way. He's got a pregnant wife. So he like in his head, he's like, I don't even know why I said that. But then outside, he's like, I will fucking die for you. Like he's immediately into her.
There's just something about this woman. I don't know what it is, but God damn it, I'll die for you.
Yeah. And so we cut away from there to like a grisly murder scene where we get introduced to a police officer and his partner. And they are at this house that's got these cult members that have been beheaded, and it looks like a scene from fucking Hellraiser or something.
Yeah.
Like just blood everywhere. There's an attic full of like pagan ritual stuff and everything. We come to find out that this main detective, who's named Detective Walter, he's like the person that Josephine. Well, for now, we'll say that it's the person that Josephine lives with. Something a little more sinister comes up, but I'm still not quite 100% sure exactly what they are, but just know Josephine and this Walter police officer are kind of together. They do establish that these guys are kind of dirty cops. They're on the take and whatnot. And we get like a flashback as Walter thinks about this, these cultic things on the walls and his goat heads and stuff. He's remembering back to World War II when he was, fighting the Nazis, and he saw a lot of this same imagery just with swastikas on them or whatever. And so he's remembering that, and he's like, that's when I first saw her in the dungeons of Romania. And he's talking about Josephine. And so it's like, wait, what? Like, okay, this cop knows her. And this is where I was confused. This is like the first part I was like, wait, what just happened? Because we cut to from his like flashback of thinking about the war to her waking up kind of like in bed, scared, or like maybe she was having a nightmare or something. And then she looks over, no one's in the bed next to her, and then this guy walks in, and it's the cop, it's Walter, but he looks a bit different than he did, like with all his cop uniform on, because he's got like an overcoat, like he's got a suit and tie, and he's got like his fedora on as a cop. So I did not recognize him at first because he doesn't
Yeah,
have any of that on.
I felt that too. I felt like he looks very this guy looks very disheveled,
He looks more heavy set
overweight.
too. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. So I was kind of like, is that the same guy? But then she was like, oh yeah, well, that Walter, and I was like, wait a minute, that was the cop's name. So this is the same guy.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna go with yes, but eventually we do find out that yes, it is. But there was, I don't know what it was about the way that the story was told, but the hard cuts between page flips and stuff, sometimes that would throw me off, and I'd have to catch up, and then I would catch up eventually, but I had to like take notes because I was confused, like exactly, wait, okay, who's this guy? Who's that guy? What's going on? Okay. So that might be like I don't know if this was the first time that Brubaker and him worked together, but I think it was pretty early in their career that they worked together. So maybe they just hadn't figured out their rhythm or something. Because now when I read them, like with Reckless and stuff, no issues at all. But even with like stuff where they jump between time periods and whatnot, haven't had any issues. But maybe this first one was maybe ambitious, or it had like an interesting thing. And I kind of thought like maybe if they did the story differently, like just had it start off in the past and then work to the present or something, maybe that would have helped it. But then I was thinking about it, the way that this, at least the way that all the like beats hit, it kind of has to be set up this way, where you learn about Nick and then you go to the past and then you kind of catch up with Nick at the end. So I guess it kind of had to be like that, at least the way that they structured it. But yeah, it was kind of a little hard to follow sometimes because of that. So, like we said, we find out Josephine's situation. She obviously does not like this guy Walter. Like, at least at some time she did like him. Like maybe when he saved her during World War II. But she wants to leave him. She doesn't know how to leave him, apparently. And it seems like it's more than just like she can't just walk out. Like maybe there's some kind of magic. Also, Josephine looks the exact same age that she was in, 20 years ago or whatever. When
In the 40s during World War II, and in the 50s.
Yeah, almost. I guess it would be 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she looks the same. He looks more heavy set and different. So something seems, and also we know we've seen her in the present with Nick, so we know something's magical about her or something. But we don't know what yet. But it seems like she's not able to leave for reasons possibly supernatural. Because like he leaves and stuff, like he leaves the house, but like she still stays there. So it's like there's got to be some reason why she can't leave of her own free will. And then we cut to not Nick. We cut to Hank, who this is after he met Josephine that night. He is, like we said, enthralled. He can't sleep. He's like laying in bed with his eyes wide open next to his pregnant wife, and he's like, I don't know why, but I just had to go like figure out what's wrong. Like something's wrong with her. She had a secret, and I need to help her out. And so he starts investigating things, like
specifically the corrupt cops.
Yeah, I can't remember why. Is it like, does she ask for his help? Yeah, that was what it was. They were meeting at the bar because Josephine was like, I have dirt on this cop that I live with. I don't think she says that she lives with him, but I have dirt on this cop, or these two cops. And so he was meeting with her to get dirt on these two cops. And then, and so that's why he's enthralled with her. He wants to help her out. So he's following what these cops have been doing, and like noticing some things around, like corrupt stuff that's been going on with crime scenes that they've been at, or it seems like maybe they're not doing their jobs very well, or they're on the take, stuff like that. So in the meantime, we get this weird scene, and I did not quite understand exactly what happened here. So the cop, Walter, I guess he is, upset or like not satisfied with Josephine anymore. So he takes this card to Chinatown, where I guess he learned about this spell from from Josephine. Um, and maybe this I don't know. Was this a card that she had or something? Do you know? You figure it out?
No, I'm not sure. It just said it said he'd taken it from he took it from a cult person.
Oh, okay.
Is
So he
what
took it from an occult. That's right. That's right. He took it from one of the occult people, but I guess he knows what it is or how it works because he does this spell that he says he learned from Joe, where he like puts his blood on it, he lights it on fire, and all of a sudden, two goons come in the room and they're like, basically, how may I help you? You're like, it's a big mistake you came here because you're a cop. So like, what do you want? And it turns out like I thought he was just here because he was actually meeting someone, and then that like the occultic thing was a side thing. But I think these guys show up because he does the actual occult ritual with the card. Am I wrong on that?
No, I think that makes more sense. Yeah, because I thought he was meeting someone at first too, but then yeah, he's kind of like, oh, okay, we'll
Like he
take
called
it to this
them.
guy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he's basically like, I want a meeting with Mr. Shadow. That's not his real name. That's like I'm like from the Fifth Element. Mr. Shadow's the big planet or whatever that
yeah.
Zord calls. So it's like I want to talk to Mr. Shadow. He does this thing, and then it's like, well, you can't talk to Mr. Shadow. Mr. Shadow's busy, but you can talk to us. And so yeah, basically, like I think that's what happened. He started the ritual where he called this being forth and said he wanted to talk to him, and basically he wants to talk to him because he's dying of cancer. He's got lung cancer, and I guess he figures Josephine can't help him, so he's gonna reach out to whoever this being is that he just called forth to help him with his cancer. And the only thing that they want Josephine. So I guess, like we said, their relationship's kind of soured over the years, so he's not against throwing out Josephine to them, I guess. So
Yeah, he says they have something they want, and it's Josephine. So we don't know to the extent of why.
right. So then we cut to Josephine. She's kind of on her own doing. She feels the weirdness between the cop and her and everything. So she's like, oh, she goes to his office or something. Or is it this guy, or is it? It says Booker. I don't know who Booker is. Is that Walter? I think it's Walter. It's Walter's.
Yeah, Walter.
Office.
That's Walter's
Yeah.
last name. Yeah.
Yeah. So she like goes to Walter's office and she's like, oh, I guess it's at like he rents the room from someone. So she goes to the super and she's like, oh, I need to get in. Walter wants me to get something. And he's like, are you sure? And like he looks at her and instantly he's like, oh, never mind. Like totally have whatever you want. Like take my wife. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. Like he literally is like, I'll give you whatever you want. You're beautiful. You know what? You're beautiful. And like, so it seems like all men kind of have this reaction. It's not just Hank, which makes sense. And also like we saw Nick basically do the same thing earlier. So she goes in and she's looking for more dirt, right? More stuff to incriminate him. But oh no, and also she's looking for. I guess she's given all the dirt to Hank, but she's looking for the stuff that supposedly, I guess is the thing that is. We don't know exactly what it is, but it's supposed to be the thing that's keeping her bound to him. Because, like I said, there's something supernatural about why she has to stay with him. So she's looking around his room. She finds a box. There's this symbol that is carved in, which is basically the Deathly Hallows symbol from Harry Potter, but the triangle's upside down. And it's just a circle with a triangle in it, and there's like, it's not a line down the middle. It's
Kind of looks like an eyeball, but not quite.
Sure.
Maybe like a really thin eyeball.
Yeah, it could be. They never really zoom in on it, so I never got like a close up of what exactly is in the middle. But it's basically the Deathly Hallows symbol from Harry Potter, and that's supposed to be. We find out later, like it blocks bad things from being able to see you, like or magic stuff. So like, if you carve it on something, they kind of walk by it. They don't notice it if they're supernatural, and maybe they have the ability to find other supernatural things. Well, if you put something supernatural under this or under this symbol, or it'll conceal it. So, she eventually does find this floorboard with the symbol on it. She goes in it thinking it's going to be, whatever's holding her, whatever's binding her, but it ends up just being old war photos and stuff. So and then uh, in the background we also see like Hank has a partner. He's the journalist. He's got a photographer who's a partner, and basically the story that they're getting dirt on from this cop is that they're on the take from this mob boss named Mayday Lucarelli, and so they're building this case, and apparently Hank just kind of gives the story up right away. Like he's like he was supposed to hold on to it. Him and his partner had talked about it. What's his partner's name? Jimmy or Johnny?
Johnny.
Johnny.
Yeah.
So Johnny and him had said like, yeah, we're gonna like wait till we have a solid fucking case, then we'll bring it and print it, and then like there's no way they could get away from it. But apparently Hank has put it up early, and Johnny's not happy about that. Then we cut to the Walter and his partner, and they're breaking into more of these cultist places. And I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, I guess they're just doing their job, right? Like they're looking into these cult murders.
Yeah, that's like the case that Walter is on, is these
Right.
these string of murders.
Right. So they're just doing their regular job. This isn't. He's already got the card, and he's called forth this whatever being from these cultists. But I think he's still trying to figure out, kind of for us as the reader as well, like what were these guys doing? Like what do they worship? You know, that kind of thing. So Walter eventually catches up to this guy that runs from the scene, and as he beats the shit out of him, all of a sudden, like I should mention at the Chinese place where he did the ritual with burning the card, he had said, I want to meet Mr. Bishop. And they're like, well, you don't get to talk to Mr. Bishop. You got to talk to us. And he's like, no, you tell him I want to talk to him. So now, as he beats the shit out of this guy and the guy gets knocked out, all of a sudden from his unconscious mouth, we hear like, Walter Booker, the bishop will meet with you. Like, you know, it's like he's talking through this guy. I thought he was dead, but apparently, I don't know. I guess the guy is not fully dead. He just beat the fuck out of. So, because he does wake up like after this guy's done talking to him, and he says like, "Oh, I want to meet with you alone at this place." So, Walter's like, "Okay, I'm gonna be able to make my deal." He's happy about that. He hasn't made the deal yet, but we know later on what the deal is that he's gonna give Josephine to him. So, yeah, we get a little bit about Johnny, the Hank's partner, getting mad that he's selling it, or he's giving the story too early or whatever. But really, what is interesting about this scene is we just see like Hank is just infatuated with Josephine, and he's like that. That's why he needs it to come out earlier, because Josephine needs it to come out earlier, right? And we see that they have escalated their relationship to where like Hank is like, I couldn't resist her. I tried to resist, but I couldn't. She rocked my world. And they show the panels where she rocks his world. So
She's like, and Johnny's like, hey man, that's you got lipstick on your collar. And he's like, yeah, about that. And then yeah, we see the rocking of his world.
Yeah, so she rocks his world. That's why she's like, I need you to put that story out earlier than you had intended, so that my cop, it's not her husband, but whatever, the guy she lives with, Walter, he'll get busted, and then she'll be free if she can find the thing that he has on her. So yeah, at the same time, he does notice like on her door, or on his door, I can't remember if it's her door or his door, but wherever they were, I guess it's their hotel room door. She wrote that symbol, the like Deathly Hallows symbol, and he's like, "What's that?" And she's like, "Oh, that's how you hide from bad stuff." And he's like, "Okay," and then, so we kind of like, obviously that's like Chekhov's Deathly Hallows symbol or whatever, because like that's going to come into play later. Then we cut to Walter, who's meeting with Mr. Bishop, and I thought this was pretty interesting. There's like two dudes sitting on a park bench. One of them has his throat like totally ripped out, and I was kind of like, is this just a random guy that they murdered? I guess he was. I don't think he was anything important, was he?
No, I don't think so. I think he was just
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, because he was like, it was basically his sacrifice that brought us together. So
Right. Okay. So, and this Mr. Bishop is obviously some sort of demon or something, because as he like looks up at Walter, he's got like red eyes or orange eyes or something, and he's got like a serpent's tongue as he lights a cigarette, or as he lights a cigar. And so, and this is where they make the deal. Basically, hey, I have cancer, cure it. And he's like, well, only if you give me Josephine. So, but then at the same time, after they make the deal, Mr. Bishop's like, oh, did you see the newspaper from today? And Walter's like, no, I've been busy all day. And then he looks at it and it says, cops on the take, like, and there's a picture of him and his partner taking or giving money. Is it taking money? I guess it's taking money from the mob boss, Lucarelli or whatever his name is. And so he starts freaking out about that. So now he's like, how the hell did anybody know about that? The only person who knew that was Josephine. And so like he knows Joe's like betraying him. At the same time, Hank's wife finds that lipstick on his collar, and she knows that he is also betraying them. Do you think her reaction to this is not realistic, but like is what it is, because it's just like that's what it would have been in the 50s or 60s? Like, she's obviously distraught. She cries, but she continues doing laundry and shit.
Yeah, it's probably the time, and also, I mean, she doesn't she doesn't show her like wash that, but I don't think she has enough time to, because like literally as she sees it and she's like tears up about it and she start goes on, then Mr. Bishop appears at the door.
Yeah, so we should say that Mr. Bishop says like they need a sacrifice for this to really like go through, this deal to be really brokered, and he's like, yeah, that's fine. And he thinks he means Josephine, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
But what we find out later, or right now actually, is that the sacrifice he's talking about is Hank's wife. So he shows up at her house, Mr. Bishop does, and he's like, oh, excuse me, ma'am. I'm doing, I can't remember. Oh, he's like, your husband's won an award, and I wanted to talk to you about it. It's top secret, but can I come in? And I want to get some notes down before we give your husband this award. And then she's like, oh, yeah, sure, come on in. His teeth are all pointy, like he's going to eat her. So, yeah, obviously he's going to murder her. But this was where I was like, man, okay, specifically, if my wife found out I was cheating while she was doing laundry, and then some guy was like, your husband won an award, my wife would be like, he can go fuck himself, and like burn the house down. And then like,
yeah, pretty much.
So that's why I was like, is this real?
I think you're right. It's a sign of the time. Just like, oh, I think so. Because I mean, at least in like old pulp movies and stuff, or things from that, that we see from that time, they always seem to be like, like, it's something that you hold down and like bring up later, or
right.
Like, hey, I saw something on your collar earlier. Did you want to talk about something?
Babe, come on. I was holding a dog and he had lipstick on. Jeez, what do you think? I'm cheating on you?
She tripped and I caught her, and I guess her
lips must have touched my collar.
Yeah.
And my chest and my dick and my, come on. She fell, all right? What was I supposed to do?
She fell right on my penis.
Over and over again.
Wow.
Yeah, anyway.
I assume it's something like that.
Yeah. So then we get like the first interlude cut back to modern day. Which this is why I was kind of like, okay, I knew this was modern day, but it was definitely like, okay, what is the, like, it had been enough time that I'm like, I don't understand what the point of, or like, what is the mystery here in modern day? Because as of now, we just know Nick met Josephine. He was at the house. He got jumped by two henchmen that look oddly familiar from Mr. Bishop's henchmen. And then he lost his leg. So we don't really know what they're after, or what this was all about. So we see him at the house, I'm assuming a couple months later, because he's walking with a cane and he's got a, what's that called? A mechanical leg or whatever. I don't know if it's a wooden leg, but yeah, it probably is, I guess. I don't know. But prosthetic leg. There you go. Thank you. It was the one-armed man. That's all I Um, so, but he's walking upstairs and shit. So it seems like he's pretty well adjusted to it. So it's got to be at least, I would say, like 6 months later. I don't know how long it takes to recover from a lost leg. At least enough to walk around on it, but even with crutches. But it can't be that fun.
And you should know because you just had a foot injury.
I
So
didn't lose my leg, but I just broke my foot a couple months ago, and that sucked. So being on a scooter,
you thought it would be a much quicker process than it was.
yeah. Well, the doctor kind of insinuated that, and then was like, "Oh no, totally be like 2.5 months." So, oh, thanks. Uh, but anyway, so yeah, it was like modern day. He's back at the house. He's got cops with him now, and I guess they're going over the crime scene now. To which I was like, "What would be the point of that? Like, why would the cops need to be there for that? Because they're basically like, yeah, who gives a shit? Like, some guys broke in, they, you ran away, you lost your leg, but they didn't take anything that you could tell us. So, what do you want us to do about it?" And they basically leave. But he looks around the house a bit more, and he doesn't find anything. Just old letters, nothing really important. So he goes back to the only piece of the puzzle that he has for real, which is the manuscript, and he starts reading that some more. And there was a part where he talks to, like, I guess the publisher, which is super fucked up. But there's like a publisher who's like, I guess it was Dominic's old publisher. She's like, "So I know you got the house. Did you find any manuscripts?" like she's trying to figure out if she can get him to publish anything that he finds.
It could be worth some money.
Yeah. So he's like, "No." But this is where, like, he kind of goes through the accident in his head when he's like, "I was completely hit on the head, out, covered in blood, lost a leg. Josephine, not a scratch on her. She pulled me out of the flames. She put the manuscript in my hands. Thank God it was well bundled and not near the flames." And yeah, that's how I got here. So he's very like, something's up with her, but got to figure out what's going on. This manuscript will tell me what I need to know. So he goes through and he read the chapter about they don't say what happens to the wife yet, but you would assume that she got killed, right? From the last scene we saw of her, from Hank's wife. So he's like, well, he still thinks this is a book. So he's like, well, if this is real, like if this story is real, then his wife will have died. So it would be in the newspaper. So he goes to a library. He looks through some microfiche. Have you ever looked through microfiche, John?
Mm-mm.
No, you've never done that?
No, I've seen it in movies and stuff, and I've seen like photographs of the microfilm,
Of course.
but I have not. Yeah.
No, the microfilm. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I remember doing it like once or twice when I was a little kid for like a book report or something, like a library. And I was just like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, but basically it's like a film. It's like really tiny pieces of film, strips of film of every newspaper that's come out that year. So you can just it's a machine that cycles through it really quick. So you can go back and forth and you can see like the headlines and all actually I think it's the whole newspaper of each day or year or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you can, if you want to find a specific day where this newspaper talked about this thing, you can. And it's basically the internet, but a very, very, very crude. And it's just for, it's just for what you have photos of newspapers, basically.
It's just for looking up a history or piecing together a really old case for police officers.
Exactly.
Or finding out how much the price of tomatoes were in, 1928.
Yeah. That or whatever book report I was looking up. I don't know what I was trying to do with that, but I remember having to learn how to use the machine, and I was like, what the fuck is this thing? So, and I was like 6 or something. So but anyway, he finds out, oh, it's totally real. He gets the description. Basically, she was torn apart, legs and all, baby was ripped out of her, super fucked up. In fact, they even say like the baby's limbs and stuff or parts of the baby were found, but I think they were just assuming, because later on we see like maybe that wasn't true. But at very least the wife was horribly murdered. So then we cut to the 50s again after he makes that revelation, and we see the cops are getting chewed out because now, the newspapers revealed that they're on the take, and they get, I don't know if they get fired, but they get like
You get suspended,
suspended.
boys.
Yeah. He says, give me a gun and your badge. Put them on the desk. Get out of here, mister. So, and as Walter comes home, obviously his partner's super pissed about this. And as Walter comes home, he finds that his house is completely empty pretty much, and Josephine has left. And the problem is he needs Josephine. He needs Josephine because that's part of the deal he made with Mr. Bishop, who is the big bad he raised with that card burning. So he's like looking for her, and their super says like, oh, Josephine, yeah, you just missed her. She left 2 nights ago. She hasn't been here, and I think she took all her things, So he's like, fuck, I need her because I made a deal with this demon or whatever, and I gotta pay good on it. So as he gets in his car to go search for her, all of a sudden we see 2 goons in the back seat with shotguns. They knock him out, and they tell him like, you better have what we want. You better get it, and you only have like, I think, a week or something to get them.
3 days
3
to
days.
make the delivery.
Yeah, exactly. I always thought these guys look a lot like the German bad guys from Indiana Jones. The sunglasses and the hats.
And I kind of figured they were, since all the cultist stuff they saw it had Nazi. But yeah, I wasn't trying to put that together, but I was like, they kind of look. They all have the little round glasses and little like derby hat.
Yeah, Brubaker does not give them German accents, but if he did, I wouldn't hate it. So it would make a lot of sense. So then we see that like the hotel that Josephine and Hank are shacked up in, and it looks like they're just having sex 24/7 in this hotel room. But Josephine, like this whole time, like I guess the reason why she would be a femme fatale in this is because she is using him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like she is using Hank to get out of her situation. She basically destroys his life because his wife, like, I'm going to say, even though, it is his choice somewhat, I'm going to say because she's a supernatural person and she was like influencing him, that it was against his will that he cheated on his wife. Because the whole time in his head, he's like, I don't want to do this. I don't know why I can't do this. I can't get it out of my head. What the fuck? I don't want to cheat on my wife. And then that's like coinciding with images of him and Josephine having sex. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna say that.
How are you gonna justify it for him, man?
Hey, how am I supposed to? It's hard to do it with to fight against those temptations as a regular man. How are you supposed to do it against supernatural ladies? All right, it's not fair.
There's no, yeah.
But yeah. So I guess they're on the hideout, or they're on the they're hiding out from her. It's not her husband, but like the guy. Walter, the cop that's like she lived with. So they're hiding from him because he's a cop, obviously, and he could probably find her easily if they don't cover their tracks. So she shows up at this town, and immediately there's people that are walking by her that are recognizing her. They're like looking at her, and then they go to this old beaten up house, and she's like, "This is where it was. This is the first place that I died," and like she kind of reveals something that happened here. It was. I don't know exactly. I didn't quite understand what this was. And this is where we're saying like maybe later on they reveal this in the future books. But I don't think this is like where the ceremony that she got like possessed would have been, right? Or like where she became more than her, right? Because that would have been in World War II. That would have been in Europe.
I would think so, but I'm not sure, because with what happens at this house too. I don't know.
I don't know. They give this house significance, but it's in California. So I'm kind of like, I'm not sure where, like it shows in the flashback of Walter, he's like fighting Nazis, shooting his Tommy gun. And then there's Josephine, but that wasn't in California, I'm assuming. And they say that she's like Romanian or whatever. So like, okay, well, what does this house have to do with it? But they make it sound like this is where like, all the bad juju. So maybe he brought her back and then, the stuff happened. But as they walk into this abandoned house, Hank gets hit on the head by this homeless guy who was one of the people that noticed her on the street. And it turns out he's been waiting for her to come back for years, and he knew she would because this is like a place of significance to her, and he knew that. And then he takes off his clothes, and we see he's got all these crazy like tattoos of like pagan stuff or whatever. I'm assuming.
Yeah, it made me think like Red Dragon, like "Wah, I've been waiting for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he's got all these paganish tattoos.
that's
All
true.
of
It's
these.
not nearly as cool as the red dragon on his back in that movie, but yeah, that's a great movie. Great book too. Actually, I would say read the book. The book is pretty freaking awesome. But anyway, so this guy's like, yeah, I knew you would come back, and like I'm here for the Masters, and I remember that night I was here in the room, and then we get like a flash of like Cthulhu tentacles, and we're assuming this guy, and he's holding the knife above Josephine, and there's flames around him and stuff. So we don't know exactly what happened, but Cthulhu monsters is what we get from that, right? I think this is the first reveal of that, right?
Yeah, the Cthulhu monsters, and it says that they remade you. They made you perfect.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, they made something, but again, we don't really know.
Yeah, we don't know what she is, but she's definitely not human anymore. So I guess, and she says this is where I died. So her human self died. She was reborn as whatever she is. We don't know yet. But as you know, he looks like he's about to shoot her or something. Hank starts to wake up, and I guess he's kind of distracted. Or no, this was pretty cool. And this is why I'm like, Hank's not to blame for cheating on his wife, because she tells the guy, she's basically like, shoot yourself in the head. And like, and he like kills himself. It's kind of like in Doctor Sleep. I don't know if you've seen that. You've seen that movie, right, John?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where the pusher girl is like, kill yourself, right? As she's about to die. And the guy like just puts a gun to his head and blows his brains out. Same thing. She tells this guy to do that, and he does. So that's how you know, I think Hank's an upstanding citizen. And in fact, how could he not sleep with her? All right. She was manipulating him. So after all that, and I'm not even sure, I guess she just wanted to go back here for memories. I can't remember.
Yeah,
why.
I don't think she expected this to happen.
No, I think she just wanted to see it one last time or something, and then go. But they do end up burning the house down, because it's like, well, what else are we gonna do? And this guy's like crazy homeless guy, they could say, killed himself and burned the house down. So they go away, and keep in mind, Hank don't know what the fuck happened to his wife yet. So he's like, wow, that was great. I can't believe it. I can't believe all this is happening. Like, that was crazy. We got attacked by this hobo, and she saved me from a crazy killer. And then he like drops her off, and then he goes to his house, and there's all these cops around it, and he's got blood on his shirt and shit too, right? Because he fought with this homeless guy. And they're like, whoa, who are you? And he's like, that's my wife. He's like, there's blood on your shirt. Take him down. Like, like they think he maybe did this. So he gets arrested for the murder of his wife and unborn child. And yeah, it's pretty messed up, I thought. I don't know. What'd you think of this whole like section? It moves pretty quickly, like bam, 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 like where we reveal everything.
No, this was very cool. I thought it was funny. Yeah, like he takes Joe and like drops her off. He's like, man, that was crazy. I don't really know what happened, but hey, I guess you saved me. Okay, back off to my wife. La 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 la. And then
Yeah.
and then the cops and all that. So yeah, it was a very fun and crazy set of events.
Yeah. So then we cut to Mayday Lucarelli's house, the mobster, and he wakes up from what he thinks is like an earthquake, but when he actually like gets up and walks around, he finds his guards have had their heads blown off by the henchmen of Mr. Bishop, and they're in the room together. And basically, he's like, "Who the hell are you? What's going on?" And Mr. Bishop's like, "Okay, well, like you're part of this deal that I made with this cop, so like we got to make you go away so he doesn't get in trouble." And that's pretty much like they're just setting this up in the background, like Walt. This is all part of Walter's deal. Then we cut to Joe, and she's, it's the next day. She's at a diner. She sees on the table the newspaper for the day, and it says Grizzly Murder. And she looks at it, and she knows, exactly what happened. Or she reads, it's Hank's wife was murdered. And so Hank's in prison, or Hank's in jail, and they're questioning him for like hours and hours and hours. They're interrogating him, and people are like, "We know it was him. We know." And of course, the people on this case, there's like they're thinking it's linked to possibly the occult murders or whatever. So they're like, "Yeah, the cops that should interrogate him are going to be, or the two cops that are arguing to interrogate him because they're saying it's part of their case are Walter and his partner, who have an interest in beating the fuck out of Hank or murdering Hank, or maybe making him confess to something he didn't do because he's the one who outed them to the press, right? So eventually they get turned away, and their boss says like, "No, you can't interrogate him. Go away." Josephine shows up at is it at the it must be at the actual police station. And then there's like Walter and her have like a heart to heart where he's like, "Why'd you do it?" And she's like, "Well, I had to protect myself, and you have the thing, and I have to stay with you, and I just wanted to get away." And this is where we kind of see like, oh, he's got like, it's kind of been talked about, but it's more confirmed that there's like, he's got something that he found in World War II that like makes her stay with him. Like if he has it, or whoever has this thing, it's almost like the genie lamp or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like whoever holds it has hold over her. Cause she even says like, "Give me my freedom,"
Yeah. And that's what it kind of felt like. Cause he was like, "Oh, you're right. Like, I can't resist you or whatever. Like, okay, well, I'll get it. I can't get it for you now. We'll get it for you tomorrow, whatever." But like, they have like like the heart to heart, they have an embrace, and it's like, okay, we're going to go our separate ways, and everything's going to be hunky dory, probably. Sure.
It goes well. Like, he says like, "Okay, like we'll let him go," or whatever. He didn't do it. And but I think he's under like her thrall a bit here, because she like kisses him and he like softens a lot. And then like,
Oh, that's true. She's probably doing that to him. I didn't even think of that again.
yeah, she's manipulating him, because then he like calms down. So he like falls down to his knees after she walks away from him, and she's like, "Don't let me down, Walter." So he falls down to his knees, and then he has this flashback, or we get this flashback of like, Walter Booker was born with special like sight, and basically he's always been able to see like supernatural shit. And which is why when he was in World War II, he kind of like went down some different alleys than maybe his friends would have gone, and he found Josephine and whatever else he found from the Nazi occult stuff. So, but then like he starts to think about it, and he's like, "Hold on a second." Like, I mean, he lets Hank go, but he definitely is like, if I let Hank go, he'll like lead me to Josephine, I think. Right? That's what happens. Like he immediately is like, he knows that she's playing him, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, basically that's pretty much what happens. Like Hank gets out, then Hank leads, I guess it's the partner directly to like Walter's partner directly to where Josephine's hiding out, and he puts a gun in Hank's face, gets all crazy, kind of beats him up a little bit, but also before his partner can really do anything else, he gets stabbed in the back by one of these occult members who also followed, and so they're all following him basically, because he's an idiot. So Walter, I guess he knows where the meeting's going to be, where like the last meeting is going to be, where he has to have Josephine, because I think she says she's gonna show up to him, right? Like she says she'll show up there.
They're going to show up at this place that they used to frequent together.
Right, but that's because that's where that's right. He's setting her up. He says like, "Oh, we should meet at this place that we used to meet up when we first got back to the States." And she's like, "Okay." And then that's where he told Mr. Bishop that he's going to meet for this last like hoorah, where he's going to give her Josephine, or he's going to give Mr. Bishop Josephine, and then he's going to get his cancer cured. So that's what's going on. Okay. So there's a lot of moving parts in the story. So, but he knows a little bit of magic, so he carves that Deathly Hallows symbol on his arm. so that I guess he's hidden from evil. And so he goes, like the place he tells her to meet him is like this cliffside. So he meets her there, and she's like, "Oh my god, like you snuck up on me. That's so weird. Like usually I can sense you no problem." And then he pulls out this package because that's what he said he's wanting to meet her there for. Like he's gonna let her go free. And so he hands it to her, and apparently it's some kind of manuscript of an unspoken language that drives people crazy if they study it too long. And somehow that binds her to him. They don't really explain it too much. It's just, it's, what's it called? I can't remember what it's called.
They just said it was on an altar from that day, quote unquote, and that he took it.
It was on the altar from that day,
Yeah,
along with her, or
the day
whatever.
he saved her.
Yeah, yeah, he saved her, but this little piece of paper was on the altar in the room that she was in, and all this stuff. So like, basically, he saved her, and then he reveals like, okay, yeah, like I knew what you were doing. I know your plan to like get out of here and run away and all this stuff, and like I'm working this murder because it's ritual sacrifice, and I'm the one who summoned him and stuff. And then we find out she sees finally that his hand is bloody because the blood is running down his arm from where he cut the sigil, and then he hits her in the face with a blackjack and she gets knocked out. This is one part I was like, I feel like Josephine wouldn't have got knocked out by that because we've seen her survive like a car crash directly,
Have you ever got hit in the head with one of those little
Blackjacks? No.
blackjacks?
But I also have not gotten blown up in a car crash.
That's true.
And I would assume the car crash would be hit harder than that. So
Probably. I don't know.
I'm just going by what they've established. So now we're at like the kind of end thing where we find out, we cut to Hank. He is now tied up. He's being used for bait against her. Mr. Bishop has him tied up with his occultic people. They're going to, they're waiting for Walter to bring Josephine here. But there's like a well. It's underneath this city. There's like a well. In that well is, I'm assuming, some kind of eldritch Cthulhu god that they're going to feed people to. They're saying the last time this happened was 1906, so we can kind of assume that that was when Josephine was turned. Maybe. What do you think about that?
I think so. It says that in the depths and the bowels of San Francisco, and this is where her predecessor died. So I don't know if it's something where she took over from whatever happened then, or but I assumed it was something like that.
Walter shows up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, finally you're here." So Mr. Bishop comes out to see and make sure for sure he's got Josephine, and he opens his trunk and she's there. She's tied up. He's like, "Hell yeah!" But then he's like, "Oh, I need my lighter. I'm trying to light a cigarette." And he pulls out a gun, and then like shoots the two guys that are like the two henchmen that are with Mr. Bishop. And then there's a kind of a fight, and it turns out there was one more thing that he took from the altar, besides that piece of paper with the unspoken words on it. It is some kind of stone dagger that we're going to assume is special and can kill this guy. They don't really explain how or why, but that is it. That is like, they're like, okay, the stone dagger was on that altar. We're going to assume it is magical. So he does cut Mr. Bishop, and Mr. Bishop is like, "Where the hell did you get that thing?" And he does like run away from him. But he does, or Walter follows Mr. Bishop into these tunnels, and there's more than just one henchman or a couple henchmen there. There's like the occult members and everything. So he finally tracks down Mr. Bishop, and as he's about to stab him, Mr. Bishop, we see him like putting his blood into the well, and then like as he turns around, as Walter comes up on him with the knife, we see his face become all like Cthulhu monster, and he gets like tentacles and shit. And then there's a big struggle and a fight. In the meantime, we see Josephine going to save Hank. And then Walter is able to push Mr. Bishop into the tunnel, or into the well, which starts a big earthquake. So I guess, because the eldritch gods are rising or some shit, or they're unpleased. So everybody starts to run out. Of course, like stones are coming down and falling. Everybody is trapped, except of course you got Hank and Josephine at one end of these tunnels, and Walter who's coming out, and like dodging all these rocks and everything falling. And as they come around a corner, Hank sees Walter, but he doesn't know that Walter is good and on Josephine's side, and he shoots Walter, which kills him. But luckily Walter's like, don't worry, like I was gonna die anyway. I was dying of cancer. More importantly, I got this, like something for you, something that he's gonna need, And he pulls something out of his pocket that's in a handkerchief, and he gives it to Josephine, and we see it's eyeballs, orange eyeballs. So they were the eyeballs of Mr. Bishop, because I guess they know he's not gonna be dead forever. He just fell in the well. So they leave Walter there to die, I guess peacefully. And then we cut to Hank and Josephine on the road, and we see like I guess because the way they left it, maybe the way that they reported it, it says cop dies solving murder. So they let Walter die as a hero. And because I guess technically he did do the right thing. And do you think that's because she influenced him?
I'm wondering if it was either the influence or maybe she just felt bad because of how it all went down for him.
Right, but I mean, what I mean is like the influence of like, do you think Walter changed his tune and actually went along with her plan? Because he was pretty hell bent on getting cured for cancer. I mean, he did all this other
That's
stuff.
true. It must have been then. Yeah, it must have been her.
So once again, another point for Femme Fatale, because he dies potentially from her and her talking ways. So yeah, we see that Hank and Josephine are like now a couple, and I don't know about you, but it seems like he's pretty not shaken up about his wife anymore.
No, he seems pretty fine about the future that he's chosen here, and yeah,
I think that might be due to her as well. Just gonna say. Also, they make her look a lot like Jackie Kennedy in this last couple panels. She's wearing that like same pink outfit or whatever, purple
pink.
outfit.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't put that together there. That's funny.
But maybe she got JFK's head blown off too. Who knows? But yeah, I was like, huh. Like he's real cool about this whole thing. But I think, like I said, I think all of this is actually her influencing everybody around her. She's manipulating with her Cthulhu woman powers. That's what I think. Then we get like the very end of this comic, right? Oh, wait, go.
I was just saying the more we kind of went back through this a little more, it definitely made it seem like, she was a little more influential than I thought the first time.
Yeah, me too. Like as we're talking about, I'm like, oh, this is definitely Femme Fatale, because like everybody's dying around her because they're listening to what she's saying, and we find out through this that she has like persuasive powers. So, and like strong ones too. Where like you could just tell someone to blow their head off and they do. So like it's pretty good power to have if you want to be a Femme Fatale. So, but yeah, so we get to the end of this comic where we see multiple of these occult members. They're still around. Yeah. They have chalices of blood, and we see a baby on the stone on like an altar. And it turns out that the baby that we thought was dead from Hank is not dead. They have stolen it, and they just like kind of raised it for the last couple months so it didn't die. And they do this ritual, and a bolt of lightning comes down, and the baby grows into a young boy. And it turns out that this is Mr. Bishop rising again in a human form. He is reborn, but unfortunately his eyes did not come back because they have his eyes. So he is blind, and apparently that is a important factor there. But yeah, so that is pretty much the end of like the main story, right? That's like the cliffhanger for the main old 50 story, right? But then we cut back to our old buddy Nick again, who thought that like he's still wondering if like he still thought Joe was the woman in this photo that he found of Hank and Josephine was actually like maybe that was like Joe's mom. He's hoping it is because obviously that would mean that she'd be like super old and everything. But so he goes to an asylum because he's like I gotta talk to someone who would know. So he goes to talk to his dad in the asylum, and he shows him a picture. And his dad at first is pretty lucid. He's like, "Hey, what is going on? How come you haven't been here for a while?" You know. And then the second he shows him this picture, the dad's like, "It's," and then like starts laughing uncontrollably and goes crazy. So like that's where they leave it. That's where they leave you hanging with like what? Like his dad knew this woman and knew what happened, but he's driven mad just from looking at her picture.
That made me wonder because it said that like if you read that the script too long you would go insane. So was it like a combination of that maybe? Like he
Oh
read that
yeah.
to I I don't know, I wasn't sure. But yeah, it definitely was like, okay, so maybe this has truly been Joe all along.
I'm gonna ask you this: is his dad supposed to be someone that we knew from the past?
I don't
It's
think
not
so.
like
I think it's
Johnny
just
or something, right? Like not the photographer. Or,
no, I don't think so. I
okay.
think it was just because it said that. Well, I mean, it did say that his dad, Nick's dad, was friends with Hank,
Right.
and
So it
that's
could
why
be
he was
Johnny.
about. So maybe it could, yeah. So maybe it could be Johnny.
Yeah, they haven't revealed that
Maybe
yet. But
maybe the next one we'll find out that she was also fucking Johnny.
I bet she's fucking everybody because that's how she is. Um, that Cthulhu whore. Anyway, so yeah, John, that's the end of the story. What would you give it? What do you think?
I enjoyed it. I think I even going through the second time, I definitely still saw the places where I was like, wait a minute, or what time frame are we in?
Right.
So like there was still a little bit of that, but overall, I think the story was solid. It definitely, as we got more into, uh, you know, what her connections to things were, I think it got really good. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. The art is really fun, especially when you get anything related to the horror elements, the Eldritch God elements of this. Anything with Mr. Bishop out of the shadows,
I thought
and
you were gonna say anything when she's naked.
no, I mean, the all of that was done
You're like, oh, I
very.
mean, yes.
No. I was gonna say for having, yeah, have her be nude in this. It was not, it was all tasteful and it was all in shadow. So nothing
Shadowy.
was ever, yeah,
Yeah.
nothing was ever, there were shapes you could tell of things, but
Round
nothing
shapes.
was, yeah, but nothing was ever terrible. And I really like, there were several times where they had just her face, and it very much reminded me of, was that Faye Dunaway in the Mommy Dearest poster? Like
Okay. Yeah.
it just very intense with her face. Although she's like it's supposed to be like a kind of a bombshell, pretty or not, still very much like there's something else going on here.
Yeah.
So I liked it, yeah, and yeah, like I said, the story was good. It made me want to know more, want to read more. So, and that's they want to get you hooked, right? So they did their job. And again, I like Ed Brubaker's writing from most things I've read before. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a solid 7.
Solid 7. Nice. Yeah. I was confused a couple times during this, but I did enjoy the story overall. I think once I got into it, like it took me a hot second to realize exactly what the flow was going to be like. But once I got into the rhythm of how it was going to go, it went pretty fast. And while I might have missed some things here and there, if by like mainly I think it was just like not having any like New York City, or whatever, or like back at the house or whatever little things that just tell you where you're at. It would have been kind of nice to have some of that, but you don't necessarily need to do that, but like for some stories. But I think this one does because it does jump back and forth between times, and then there's a lot of like characters that are doing certain things that are important. Like you got the police story, you got Nick's story, you got Hank's story, and even Josephine's story kind of differs from what's going on with each of those people sometimes. So there's a lot of moving parts, so it was definitely kind of like okay. And then I'm intrigued to see what exactly was going on with like what are these powers? What is these Eldritch gods? How did Josephine turn into a Cthulhu monster person or whatever? If she is that, I don't even know what she is. All we know now is that she's like, she can push people and um, and make them like kill themselves and stuff. So, but I do, after going through it this time, I'm like, definitely this is a femme fatale for sure, because I see all this manipulation that she's doing, and I think it's manipulation. I don't think she's a good character. I think she's doing it like selfishly, um, which some people deserve it, right? Like Walter, if he's got a piece of paper that's holding her like hostage or whatever, then yeah, he's a dick and he should be treated as such. But like Nick and also Hank, they don't need any of this.
No, she's definitely just using them.
So I like that. I think I'm going to give it like a 7.5. Like this would definitely make me buy. There's a compendium coming out of the whole story soon, I think in like summer. And I'm like, oh, I would totally buy that now, because I feel like the story would stay at least this good and probably get better as more is explained. Um, so yeah, 7.5 from me, 7 from you. With that being said, like we said, this was a Patreon voted episode because we had a whole list of femme fatale style books for people to vote on. So if you would like to become a Patreon member and vote on the second episode of every month, you can do that at patreon.com/planes, trains, and comic books, all one word. And speaking of that, we'd like to thank our patrons, Hoku, Otaku Mike, Christian, Matthew, Kyla, Joseph, Kalia, and Isaiah. You guys are awesome, and you keep the lights on over here, and we very much appreciate it. So we hope you guys enjoy being able to vote on these episodes. And then also, as part of that, if you're a Patreon member, you get exclusive episodes every month. And right now we are in the middle of our Berserk coverage of the Golden Age. So if you've ever wanted to hear our thoughts on Berserk, you're going to hear them, goddammit, because we're putting out long-ass episodes about Berserk. The first one, I think, was like over 2 hours long, which is the longest episode we've ever done. And I was like, well, if it was going to be on something, Berserk is the one to do it on. So the next one comes out next weekend, and it's going to be volume 6 through 10, right?
Yeah. So, we're in the right. We're hitting smack dab in the middle now.
Yeah, we're almost. This will be like the big middle chunk of the Golden Age. You get to see some really cool shit in this arc. I can't wait to talk to John about it this weekend. So definitely keep on the lookout for that. And like we said, John, he went through a big move, so we were kind of a little behind this week. So we apologize for not putting it out yesterday, but we got it out today. So hopefully you guys are cool with that, and we apologize once again. But going forward, I don't think we'll have too many issues. Like we said, he's got some new dog roommates and stuff, so you might hear some noises like that. But we're trying to figure it out. So.
Yeah, I think we did good overall, and I will say I moved to technically a farm, so I was surprised we didn't hear like a chicken or a goose or a duck on occasion either.
Yeah.
But that seems to be all fairly well managed, so that's good.
Yeah.
But we appreciate y'all, and there's a little bit of distance between us, but we're still putting these together for y'all, and we appreciate all our patrons and all of our listeners.
Yep. So unless you got anything else, I think we're good to go.
I think we'll see him on the next one.
On the next one.
Bye.